Reports are beginning to surface that the U.S. is looking at ways of collapsing the Benjamin Netanyahu government in light of the ongoing conflict in Gaza between Israel and Hamas. U.S. officials are apparently getting quite frustrated with the Israeli Prime Minister. Now, to chat about this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert and host of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari, who joins us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, obviously the frustration stems from the amount of innocent lives which have been lost in this ongoing conflict since the October 7th Hamas attack on southern Israel. But what kind of methods will the Biden administration consider in order to have Benjamin Netanyahu removed as prime minister?
Yeah, this is a tough one to tackle because, look, war is never pretty, right? So we know about the consequences of war. We know that Israel has claimed and doubled down on trying to prevent civilian casualties as much as possible. But we also know the Gaza Health Ministry keeps raising that number. And the tragedies of war are always real and always devastating. What we're seeing here unfold on the international stage is the public kind of rift that's growing between Bibi's government and Joe Biden's government. Now, we've known about this, obviously, if you recall, the rift between Benjamin Netanyahu and President Obama was also a thing. It was always in the news and always talked about, and it affected somewhat the policy. But traditionally, the U.S. and Israel will always be allied, and these personal relationships usually don't take a huge toll on the stance that the United States takes. Now, we want to add to that a few layers that are more unique to this situation. To believe that anyone besides Netanyahu who would be in office right now in Israel, meaning a left-leaning politician, a centrist politician, or right-wing politician like Bibi Netanyahu, would handle the aftermath of the October 7th attack on Israel differently, we are dead wrong. This is an existential threat. That is the way most Israelis are seeing things right now. I want to also remind everyone that most of those who were killed or taken hostage on October 7th were living in the South, were actual what we call peaceniks, were Israelis who are left wing, believe in peace, believe in coexistence, want to make peace with the Palestinians, and they're the ones who were caught in this war. So that has really moved the population to be obviously support this war. They know that it's an existential threat. They know that it will affect them and their children. So it's not really a bipartisan issue inside Israel. On the other hand, I also want to talk about our election year here in the United States is affecting things. The progressives are pushing Joe Biden to move on his Israel policy. We have people inside his cabinet. We have people inside Congress who are calling for a ceasefire. They should talk to Hamas about a ceasefire, but they are calling on President Biden to push Bibi Netanyahu for a ceasefire. And that is why we're seeing a lot of this pivoting, because he's afraid of losing states like Michigan, where there is a very large pro-Palestinian population there. So this is why we have to put together all the different pieces, a lot of nuance here and a lot of moving parts. So in this coming year, I know we're moving towards the election, and of course, the rhetoric will change on Israel.
Now, there are reports surfacing, Lisa, that the U.S. military is headed to Gaza to build a port. For what purpose? Is it to maybe bring in aid via sea?
Yeah, so the challenge has been getting aid to the Palestinians. As you saw, the attack, they're so hungry. This is really a very, very tragic situation because the Palestinians are not getting aid. Hamas is not providing them with the proper channels to which they can get food and proper basic needs. And so when this truck comes, of course, people are attacking the drivers. I mean, I saw an interview with an Egyptian driver, and they attacked his truck. They broke all the glass. And so then they thought they should drop the aid in. And again, there were casualties in that instance as well. So there was the idea of creating this port. Very, very half-baked idea, because it will be very difficult to vet what comes in and out of that port. Will it be weapons? Will it be aid? Who will get that aid? How will it be allocated? Will it go to the proper hands, or will Hamas confiscate that aid? And that is why a lot of people think, again, this is more of a political stance that the Biden administration is taking, like, look at us, we're doing so much for the Palestinian people. Again, we'll have to see what the actual strategy is, how they will bring this about, and really more details about this port.
And apparently 2 weeks after the attack in southern Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu himself discussed the idea of delivering humanitarian aid to Gaza with Biden via the sea. Now, Lisa, the Muslim holy month of Ramadan has begun. Is there a new ceasefire in place in Gaza? I mean, there were reports that Qatar had threatened to expel Hamas from their base in Doha if a ceasefire wasn't reached by this time.
Yeah, it's been horrible. I think again, a lot of people. We saw the Oscars over the weekend. People calling for a ceasefire, but not acknowledging the fact that this terror organization, Hamas, is the one who keeps rejecting every single ceasefire offer. Of course, Israelis want to get their hostages back. Of course, we'd love to see an end to this war, but it will take two sides to agree to a ceasefire. Now, with Ramadan coming, you think it's a holy month. You'd think, obviously, we want to see peace. We want to see this war come to an end. The leaders of Hamas, the leaders of Hezbollah have doubled down and asked that for it to be a bloody Ramadan. They have called for it to be a bloody Ramadan, calling on all jihadis to continue to kill, to continue to wage war, and to kill the infidel. There are videos on this. I know there's a lot going on social media regarding this war, but I urge everyone to really watch the core issues here, and that is watching Hezbollah, watching Hamas, watching Iran's regime pull the puppet strings. If you're asking for a ceasefire, who needs to agree to a ceasefire? Who needs to surrender here? The sooner we get to the root of this, the sooner we can put an end to it, and that would require Hamas to release the hostages, put down their weapons, and to agree to a legitimate and long-lasting ceasefire, which we had right before this war started in October.
You know, not only is Israel at war with Hamas, but as you mentioned with Hezbollah as well, Israel Defense Forces Home Front Command is now apparently setting up large bomb shelters in northern Israel in anticipation of an all-out conflict with the terrorist group Hezbollah.
Right. So with Hezbollah in Lebanon, they have been lobbing missiles into Israel since October 7th, by the way. And this is an ongoing thing. Israel deals with this all the time. Now, the reason we haven't seen a full-on war with them is because Israel has tried not to escalate that into a war. But with the attacks increasing, it's, again, Iran's regime, the puppeteer that is, turning that burner on and off and increasing the pressure on Israel and really introducing this as a new front and a new escalation. Again, with everything going on in Rafah, with everything going on in Gaza, and that continuing, it would behoove Iran's regime to now try to get Israel's attention on fighting a war against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Similarly, we have a lot of Hezbollah assets in Lebanon in civilian areas. The good news inside Lebanon is that we have a lot of anti-Hezbollah constituents, Lebanese people who want to eradicate this cancerous Hezbollah from their country. So that is why Israel is so careful, and the United States as well, to contain the Hezbollah threat and not to get civilians hurt, not to get civilians killed, really introducing a lot of these things before the war starts or before that escalation goes into Lebanon.
U.S. Central Command says that Houthi rebels attacked a Singapore-flagged bulk carrier around 50 nautical miles southeast of Aden earlier today. Now, fortunately, the anti-ship ballistic missiles fired from Yemen missed their target and the ship continued along on its voyage. But Lisa, a Houthi spokesperson also said that they successfully hit several U.S. destroyers despite an official statement from CENTCOM saying that no U.S. nor coalition ships were damaged in the attack. He said versus he said, I guess.
Exactly right, and I think this is obviously a narrative that the Biden White House wants to kind of shy away from, because this is yet another war, right? All connected again, all being puppeteered by Iran's regime, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. And in each case, we're playing whack-a-mole here. And I say it's the international community that is fighting these assets. And that is, of course, any carrier ship that wants to go through this area is at risk. They're saying they didn't hit this carrier from Singapore, but the next time they will. And they have, right? So many different carriers, European, American, otherwise, there have been casualties now that we can report. So what is the end game? I mean, again, we are in an election year here. So the Biden administration really, again, shying away from calling this a large escalation, calling this a war, involving themselves, and really trying to deliver a stern message. And again, responding to these one-offs. But what message will we send the Iran regime after 3 years of saying, you know what, we're going to play along with you because we want to get another nuclear deal? So after being very kind, trying to use diplomacy, trying to wine and dine Iran's regime, it looks like they're not going to get this message of deterrence now at this point.
Last month was the 2-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine. Lisa, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says they're simply running out of ammunition right now and need more help from the international community. But will countries around the world continue to fund this war and provide the ammunition? Is there any end in sight?
Right. And because there is no end in sight, there's obviously a fatigue here in terms of providing more resources, money, and weapons to Ukraine to fight this war. Best case scenario right now would be some sort of ceasefire, some sort of de escalation, an off ramp for Putin to take and to consider himself victorious, because we know that is what he wants. I actually wrote something over the weekend in terms of, Putin really seeing or measuring his success through how much land, territory, control, and power he has. And in that case, he will not back down until he sees himself as victorious in this situation. Now, Zelensky can petition all he wants, but again, it's going to be very difficult to hit up the international community for more money at this point. Billions and billions of dollars into this war. And of course, they've been able to have certain victories and to stop the Russians from advancing. The fact that it has taken 2 years in of itself is very surprising, and I think the Ukrainians have done a decent job. But that doesn't mean that they're going to win this war. It doesn't look like that would be an option here. So again, best case scenario is to end this as soon as we can, cut our losses, and to see how we can salvage the end of this war.
The U.S. government is considering sending troops to Haiti to quell violence as gangs vow to break the system. There are reports that in one attack, gangs were able to release more than 4,000 inmates, unleashing an army of hardened criminals into the streets of the Caribbean island nation, Lisa.
Yeah, being really run by gangs. This one incident that you report is enough to really take over the country in terms of this gang power. There is an effort by the international community to perhaps send troops, to send some sort of fortification, whether by the United Nations. The United States has also voiced that priority to get some order there. But for now, it's really dangerous. They have called out all assets to leave the country. And I know a lot of Haitians are very, very fearful. There have been abductions. There's been an increase, of course, in crime and murder, rape. And so that is why the international community is calling on all of us to work together to control the situation there.
Are we hearing if a lot of that crime is spilling over into the DR, Dominican Republic, which is, they share the same island, and the DR is where a lot of North Americans go to holiday?
Right, exactly right. There has been previously, in the last 6 months, we saw some warnings about travel there from the State Department here. But in terms of dealing with it, we're looking at this as an issue inside Haiti right now. And of course, it's going to trickle all over the place, including outside Haiti as well. But I think for right now, they want to see how they can control the situation. Very, very difficult.
The battle for global dominance is pitting the United States right now against China and Russia, and it may become out of this world, as in there are plans by the U.S.'s biggest rivals now to potentially build a nuclear power plant on the moon, Lisa. It seems a little far-fetched, but apparently this isn't a new idea.
It's not a new idea. It has actually won awards, this idea. Here in the United States, it was presented and thought of as a great idea. And guess who's listening? Our rivals, who now believe that that place for world dominance is up for grabs. I think this story just gives me that headline, just gives me that takeaway where China, Russia, and the United States are truly vying, or at least they are. I don't know if the United States is in competition mode right now, especially outside of our country, but they are vying for that place. And if the United States has its eyes set on the moon, well, they will also. Again, we're seeing all sorts of competition, or in terms of at least playing catch up to not only catch up with the United States, but to surpass the United States. We're looking at cyber capabilities and military capabilities and naval capabilities, and now capabilities on the moon.
Incredible. Wow. Who would have thought that many years ago, right? She's our foreign affairs expert and host of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari. Thanks so much for joining us today from Los Angeles.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.